Welcome to another edition of Intelligence Unscripted. I'm your host, Bala Parthasarathy. I have with me Rohit Agarwal from Portkey, who is building a very, very interesting startup. So I'll let Rohit introduce himself.
Thank you so much, Bala. Excited to be here on the podcast. I'm Rohit Agarwal. I'm the co-founder of Portkey.ai. We are an AI gateway and observability suite, building to help enterprises take their GenAI POCs to production.
That's a big mouthful. I'm sure when you're explaining this to your grandmother,
Yes,
none of these words make sense to her. So,
yes,
but today we're going to be unpacking a
absolutely.
lot of this. But before we get to Portkey and talk about what the cool stuff you guys are doing, I want to know about the genesis story, the origin story.
Yeah.
So, where did you start once you finish college? What was your first experience?
Yeah. So, I mean, so this is my second startup. My first startup was right out of college. I started FrameBench, ran that for 3 years. That was a SaaS product. And then I got a chance to get on the rocket ship, which was Freshworks back then. So Freshworks acquired our company. I moved into Freshworks for the next 5 years and built teams in the platform engineering space. And then, as the head of product for Freshdesk, I was building our customer support product. Very interesting journeys, both of them. I think during my customer support journey is when we started working on a lot of these AI use cases, but with GPT-2. And that itself used to be really exciting, that how is AI generating content from scratch? And we would get 30%, 40% accuracy, and that'll be great.
30%.
That was
And
awesome.
the world did not know what GPT-2 was.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think we had teams that were building out really cool AI support chatbots. And we were imagining that if we could automate 40% of our use cases, that's still like a huge volume that's automated. Uh, we would take a lot of time to build, etc. And then I think late 2020 is when OpenAI launched its private beta for GPT-3. And I think that was sort of the turning point for the world, where they really saw that this was way more powerful than anything we had ever seen before. I actually moved out of Freshworks at that point in time to join a startup called Pepper Content, again with a focus to build an AI first content generation piece. Because I had started to chase OpenAI's journey in Freshworks, and I was really keen to see how is AI going to shape the next version of SaaS. So that's where we built peppertype.ai, which was an AI first content generation platform, scaled to almost 250,000 users. We did a lot of cool stuff in this. I think that those 2 years were a lot of good learning for me in terms of where is AI coming from and how's it building. And that's where we also realized a lot of the frustrations with taking AI to production. It's cool to build a POC. You can build it over a weekend, which was earlier not possible. But now it was really hard to take it to production. And that was sort of the genesis of the idea to say we need to make this easier for everybody else who's going to come and start building on top of AI now.
And that's what led to Portkey. So,
Yes.
when did you start Portkey, and who did you start it with?
So my co-founder and I used to work together at Pepper.
Okay.
He used to head engineering. I was heading product AI. So the two of us,
Perfect marriage. Huh?
exactly, yes, worked out very well. I think the better thing was our spouses are very good friends. That
Okay.
was, I think, the best part for choosing a co-founder like him. But yes, so both of us started Portkey in April last year. So it's been a little over a year now.
Awesome. And I read the announcement of funding by Lightspeed.
Yes, yes. I think we were fortunate. Dave's been a friend for a really long time, and Lightspeed came on board the minute we said, okay, this is something that we want to do. Dave had also been following our journey at Pepper, so was just a continuation of the journey. Along with Dave, we also got a bunch of fantastic angels in the US and in India. And I think that formed a very good founding team for us to get started with.
You mentioned that you raised seed funding. Is that public? How much money you guys raised?
Yes, so we raised $3 million in seed financing last year.
Excellent. So you have $3 million. Looks like you have a great co-founder. Here you are sitting in 2023. GPT-3, I think, was there still 3.5 was there?
Yeah, 3.5.
Okay. 4 had not yet launched.
Yes.
Okay.
For
So
just launched.
just launched. Okay. 4 just launched. $3 million in the bank. You have a great tech team. Tell us about the problem. When you say that, it's a big gap. We kind of know that at a high level. Give us some specifics. What is the gap?
Yeah, sure. So I can talk from experience about at Pepper, right? The first problem is just rate limiting. You start to go to production, your customers start to love you, and then suddenly you start getting pings saying, hey, it's not working anymore. Your API is not working anymore. And that's when we realized there's such heavy reliance on an API provider in my backend that I don't have control over, that my users will forever face problems if my provider, which is OpenAI or Anthropic or any of these, go down. And I think that was a big realization there, saying this is a really big software risk that hasn't existed in a really long time.
So just to explain what rate limiting is for the viewers, what a platform like Portkey does is it uses a number of model providers. It could be Anthropic, it could be OpenAI, obviously, or Gemini. And these large foundational models have an API through which they are accessed. And when they get a lot of requests, they can only have so many requests in a particular time. When they get choked, they start throttling and they start saying, hey, no, don't send so many requests. Now, the end user who's sitting behind the curtain doesn't understand what's going on. And they are getting frustrated, saying, it's just slow or it's not working. It's kind of nobody's fault in some way, but it's everybody's fault in some way. So it's one of those kind of things. Exactly. So this was a classic problem. Yes. But hasn't that gotten better?
Definitely. I mean, that was one of the first problems we faced back in 2021.
Okay.
It's gotten better, but I think even at different tiers, you're rate limited differently.
Okay.
So if you suddenly see a spike in traffic, it becomes a challenge.
Okay. So rate limiting was a huge problem, but hasn't that problem sort of diminished or gotten better over time?
100%. I think models have become a lot more reliable recently. They still have outages, which you want to manage better. But even at different pricing tiers, now they've started to impose very explicit rate limits. So when you see a spike in usage, you will get rate limited or you will get throttled to some extent.
What other problems are?
I think the other big thing was, so while rate limiting is something you can still manage on the operational side, very often, and we've hallucinations almost, I think it was word of the year last year or something, but hallucinations very common. But I'll tell you this, the effect of hallucinations. There'll be a user who'll leave a 1-star review on your app that says your AI doesn't work. And you have no clue on why it didn't work, what did the user say. You can't push these large context windows into a logging system because it will become very expensive. And for all of these reasons, we actually at Pepper, we had ended up building our own logging system of sorts. But then that's another big problem that Portkey wanted to solve. How do I give you visibility into this otherwise completely black box? So I'm making AI work for me, but I have no idea where it went wrong or why it went wrong.
So the user is asking a query. The user doesn't care, which AI, what all of this. They're just asking a question. And when you're feeding this into the large language model, which almost by definition is a probabilistic machine, so it's going to sometimes make mistakes. And even though that, I think that has gotten better over time, correct?
Yes.
So it's gotten better, but it's not zero.
Yes.
But the problem in all of this is not whether it's zero or 5%. The problem is you don't know, and you don't know why this user who's simply leaving a bad rating, why they got the experience, and what exactly did they say, what did the response. You don't know any of this. You're just kind of operating in the blind. It's like a dark room, and you're just kind of bumbling around. So this is the problem with Portkey is trying to solve.
So yeah, that's one big area.
What are other big?
I think so more than rate limiting, we realized that traffic management was a big problem. So for example, I want to be able to fall back to another model. I want to load balance between multiple models that are available to me. More than that, I think a very common use case is there's this new model that's launched. I think today, Llama 3, the 400 billion parameter model, is about to be launched. And it's rumored to be better than GPT-4. Now, I'm sure people want to try that out. But does that mean I have to rewrite my production code a little bit? And that causes a lot of nervousness for companies when you're in production to say, let's change our model. There's a black box and you're replacing it with another black box. It's very hard. So that is where traffic management and routing comes into play. Where in Portkey, what we want to solve is, can I direct 5% of my traffic to this newer model, see if everything's working, and then switch more of the traffic? So these are all, I think, concepts very well explored in traditional DevOps. But for AI, you need a slightly different flavor to it. And that's what we've been trying to do, saying, how do I start adopting solutions from the DevOps world, from the cloud world, into the Gen AI space on how do I manage visibility and control of my applications through a central control panel?
So the problem statement, as you stated so far, is rate limiting, observability, saying who said what.
so that now we can go in and try to fix it if there's a problem. Load balancing, because all these things are changing. Hey, some model suddenly is not working, they're rate limiting or what, they're throttling, switch over to another model. So these are sort of classic solutions in cloud. Other people have solved this, but in the world of AI, all of this is new.
Correct.
So I think you laid out the problem statement. Are there other big problems, or these are the top few?
I think the other big problem that we're starting to see now is when larger teams of developers are starting to use these APIs, how do I build governance into all of these features?
What does it mean? What does governance mean?
So governance would be, how do I secure my API keys so that I'm not distributing OpenAI's API keys to thousands of my developers? How do I make sure that for every use case, I have the right budget limits in place? I have the right rate limits in place. Teams are only using compliant models that legal has already approved. So there's a very large aspect of governance as teams go into production, because there are definitely legal and business ramifications and risks involved with using AI in production today. So for all of that, you need another layer. So which is where the gateway is very useful as a governance layer, where tomorrow, if I want to switch off a model across teams, I can actually switch it off and redirect traffic to another model.
Got it. Are you also be able to see that, hey, the people are uploading data, for example, that the company is not not by company policy? Can you tell that as well?
Exactly, yes. So I think that's where guardrails come into play. So guardrails is essentially a series of checks that you can define on the input and the output of the gateway. And these checks will determine if so it will make sure that the input is not malicious and the output is accurate and not toxic.
Okay. So what is Portkey's solution?
So Portkey, essentially, we are offering what we want people to transition to is the AI gateway pattern. So we've been working on this AI gateway pattern, I think, since May of last year. And the idea is the same way DevOps solves a lot of these problems in the traditional cloud infrastructure, you can actually insert an AI gateway in the middle of your application and the LLM. And the gateway will then manage a lot of this traffic management, observability, guardrails, governance for you. How can I offer a control panel to my AI admin, and then that person is able to manage all of the configurations within the AI gateway? So that's what Portkey offers. This is typically a middleware or a proxy that your applications connect to. And we are then, the gateway then connects to multiple different AI providers out there.
Now, let me ask you this. Like in the world of traditional DevOps, I mean, the protocols, etc., have been pretty standard.
Yes.
So you have a load balancer, just to go back to one other example, you don't care whether it's a Linux server or some other server, as long as they all talk HTTP, right? You load balance,
Correct.
right? So, but in a LLM, right, if you're running Anthropic or GPT or multiple, even different versions of GPT, my understanding was that as of today, right, the developers, you still need to know who you're talking to.
Correct.
Because there are prompts. So people are hacking based on which one, they're talking to Llama 3 or Llama 2 or definitely OpenAI.
Yeah.
How can you be so agnostic in the middle?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's also the reason why regular traditional DevOps tools have not worked really well in the Gen AI space. Like, even like, to take your point a little bit further, is also that an API forever has always returned a success or an error. Now it's somewhere in between that it can be wrong, but it still returned a success, and I don't know what to do. And I think it's that gray areas that AI is exposing, where computing standards have to change a little bit, which is where, for example, when we are talking about accuracy, it's not just the API failed or not, but did the output come out to be accurate or not?
How can you tell that? Isn't that so subjective?
It is very subjective. And I think that's where people are writing a lot of tests to see how does a human verify that this was a good response or not. And there's a variety of tests you would actually write in your application to ensure that, okay, was the output at least to a large extent accurate? It didn't make glaring errors.
I agree, and that's what the application developers would do. But
Yes.
you are agnostic, right? You don't care application developer A or B. Your Portkey is agnostic to any of them.
Correct.
How can you sit there and judge
Yes.
whether it's accurate or not?
Yeah.
Or do you?
So Portkey is more a platform where developers will configure their own prompts, their own models, and their own routing mechanism.
And their own test success failure.
Their own, exactly. So their own tests, their own success failures, their own feedback, etc. It's meant to be a handy tool for teams to be able to build their production ready environments.
So you are kind of a layer that between the applications, whatever multiple applications in the same enterprise or obviously multiple enterprises, and on the behind the scenes, whatever LLMs they want to use,
Exactly.
right? And you're providing a full suite from installation to key management to presumably collaboration between
For prompt templates, yes,
for,
all of
for
this.
template management, prompt management, right? That becoming a big headache,
Correct.
right? To output verification as well, if they want to do it.
Exactly. And
Very
the idea is also to build this out as a platform, because we do realize that there are probably 20 other problems that we cannot solve. And we'd rather go deep in this AI gateway pattern, which offers a platform for other players to also build on top. So I know that you spoke with Ruchir of Side Labs. And so we're partnering with Side Labs to offer their guardrails on the AI gateway as well.
Got it.
So how can teams integrate with multiple best of breed products, but use it through a singular platform that they're deploying in their infrastructure, so that they don't have to individually figure out how to connect these Lego blocks together?
Now, so when they sign up for Portkey, what so the first of all, are there other competitors?
Lots of competition, Bala. Like
Mm.
the space is,
Mhm.
I think when we started, we thought this was going to be a unique idea, but a lot of people had heard that in a gold rush, build the picks and shovels. So
Yes.
no doubt a lot of people were building that out.
Too many cliches, man. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. But I would say I would categorize these into three main plays. So one competition is obviously from uh, hyperscalers. They want to definitely get into the space of managing AI better, etc. The others competition is coming from, say, startups. There are probably 300 odd startups which are building parts of this or even end-to-end platforms in this space. And the third is, I think, MLOps players. MLOps, I think, had a lot of money invested in it. And LLMs are growing way faster than machine learning technologies today. So all of the MLOps players are also building newer products or pivoting into Gen AI completely. So I would say, yeah, three different competition cohorts for us. But yeah, the space is growing so fast and there's such strong tailwinds
Yeah.
that it's still been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, in my view, every enterprise, small, medium, large in the world is going to be using these models, and most likely looks like a plethora of models. It's not going to be like one model that rules them all, right?
Yes.
So that's good news for you. Right? If
100%.
there's only OpenAI, then they will probably build all of these things
Exactly.
within themselves.
I agree.
So yeah, competition is there, but my specific question on I have a couple of specific questions on competition.
Yes.
So one thing when you're building this platform, let's say you build out, these four features that we talked about extremely well, but then there are like some fifth and sixth things that come up, right? Traceability, I don't know, something that you might not be so strong or interested or don't have the bandwidth to build it.
Yeah.
Now the problem isn't there a problem for the customer?
Mhm.
Where now they bought your platform, now they want to use two other things which is not integrated into your platform.
Yeah.
But now you're doing all the key management, they have to replicate all of this.
Yes.
How are you dealing with that?
So which is why I think the idea is for us to be as open as possible. So our gateway is actually open source. You can actually configure it, build it on your own. So teams like that flexibility. We built APIs and connectors out from Portkey into any other software. So if you have a specific requirement or a specific tool that you want to connect to, then the platform connects to it. The idea is for us, and I think comes from having built platforms before, that you need these platforms to be extremely extensible, because I will never be able to cover 100% of the use cases. So the idea is we'll do these four things really, really well. And then for everything else, we have connectors available, and you can bring in your own connections, integrations through APIs and webhooks. And I think that's been from the very beginning. Everything that you can do with the UI is also possible through an API.
Excellent. And I think, and honestly, as a startup, that's the best you can do, right?
Yes,
You can't solve every problem,
I agree.
but at the same time, you solve 3, 4 problems well, and then keep yourself open for people to integrate. That's a excellent strategy. But tell me this: the hyperscalers, right? I mean, they're almost everybody is using cloud to access these things. Aren't they going to come and just do this, right? And they have a long history of doing those.
100%. And I think they're already doing. So we closely keep talking to a lot of these hyperscalers ourselves. And it's definitely on their roadmap to build a lot of these capabilities. So right now, I think as a startup, I'm not too worried about, because this is a typical, like even 10 years back, the question was, what happens when Google builds this? Yeah, I mean, Google will build it, but we'll see what happens. But I think the real I think internally we get confidence because of two reasons. One is currently there's a very high multi-cloud usage. So almost every company that's adopting AI is using models from OpenAI, but is also using models from Bedrock, also using models from Google. So I think this multi-cloud approach is not something hyperscalers are they like too much. So right now, I think that is one moat that we have. The other is also, I think, forever and ever, DevOps tools, security tools, infra tools, developer tools have existed in the market, even though hyperscalers have always had it. So Datadog is still $1 billion company when there is CloudWatch, which is available at probably 1/10 the price. I think the difference is depth. I can dedicate all of my resources in building just one thing really well and really deep, which the hyperscalers would not invest in. And I think if you're looking for something superficial, definitely even today, something that's available out of the box in Bedrock or Azure might work. But if you're looking for a lot more flexibility, you're doing a lot more work with Gen AI, then solutions like Portkey or even one of our competitors might be a better fit.
Excellent answer. And by the way, I hate this question whenever people ask me as an entrepreneur, like, why wouldn't Google do it? Like, you know,
Yeah.
Google would have done everything. Then by that definition, there should be no startups. But that's a good answer. Is the depth? You have a moat. Multi-cloud is a reality, and there is a good reason why startups have existed and done extremely well in the last 30 years. So you got to do what you got to do, and the market is big enough, and it doesn't matter. Excellent answer. So you've stated your background, explained the problem, explained the solution, explained why you have the right to exist and right to win compared to the other 300. All of that makes sense. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about the customer. The customers using it. I think Quiz is one of the companies is using it. We both know them. Uh, how are they liking it? How is life easy for your customer?
I think the biggest value add on day one is just visibility. What earlier was a black box, I now have teams that can actually comb through logs and figure out where are improvements to be made. So where do I improve stuff? Uh, and wherever there's a problem, how do I debug and solve that problem quickly? I think that's value add number one on the first minute. So integrate Portkey, you start seeing all of this data, very useful to me. The second big advantage for companies, which is say slightly larger companies. So Quizzes loves our observability. I think they have multiple team members continuously looking at Portkey logs. And they're also the first ones to report whenever we push a wrong release. I get a ping from Quizzes, the fastest saying, hey, 2 minutes back something happened. We're like, yeah, we just reverted it back. So I think that's very useful. In larger companies where they have thousands of developers using AI systems, they really like the governance aspect of Portkey. Even if I have 50 developers, how do I share my API keys with all of them individually? And how do I ensure that all of them use it in the right way, in the compliant way? So I think that aspect of governance is again very important. Third, I feel customers like the forward compatibility bit. Enterprises.
What is that?
Yeah. So enterprises actually, there is this fear of the next new model. So I'm starting to build on GPT 4.0 because this is awesome today. But I will take 3 months to build. And at the end of 3 months, I'm sure there's a better model that's out there. And I would have gotten lost behind. So a lot of people are just hedging, saying, okay, we'll build it next quarter, etc. Because of Portkey, you can now be forward compatible. So you can say, I'll build with Omni today. But when I want to switch to a Sonnet tomorrow, the gateway will let me do that within minutes. So that's another big advantage people see because of it. So I would say these are three key things that we've heard from customers quite a bit to say, how is it helping them on a more emotional level to say, I get more visibility, I feel a lot more in control, and my security team is happy because there's enough governance built into it as well.
How long does it take to integrate Portkey?
So Portkey, to get started, is it's just 2 minutes. So we are completely compatible with the OpenAI API. So you just switch an endpoint and it starts to work. For a more deeper integration, you're deploying Portkey on your premises, etc. I think the entire end-to-end deployment would be a 2 to 3 week deployment process.
No, you're adding a layer in the middle. Does it increase the latency?
So we've actually done a lot of work just on the latency bit. On the cloud service, so the gateway itself is a millisecond latency addition at max. The round trip time can take has the maximum latency addition. For that, we are actually deployed on the edge. So that's an interesting architecture choice we chose early on, and Ayush was very adamant that we build this out. So Portkey is actually deployed on 310 data centers around the world, which means we have the lowest ping rate. You could be connecting from anywhere, and that essentially reduces our latency quite a bit. So our 95th percentile latency is about 40 milliseconds,
40. Okay.
which is almost nothing when you compare it to an LLM request. An LLM request is typically 1000 to 2000 milliseconds. In that, a 40 ms addition is at the 95th percentile is
And
improved.
that was my next question. Once these guys are working on improving their latency, they have
Yes.
to. It's too
Yeah.
slow right now. Your 40 seconds, if it stays at 40 seconds, and they reduce it to 100
Yeah.
milliseconds, is that going to stand out?
So I think we are also continuously improving it. So which means how we decrease our round trip times, how do we improve the efficiency of the gateway, and also allowing people to just deploy their gateway along with their own application, which again cuts down their round trip time. So most enterprises deploy their gateway within their own VPC, which means there's zero round trip time. So for them, the latency addition at max is a millisecond, and that's something they can afford.
Interesting. I will slightly shift gears and ask you this question. I'm very curious about this. So Apple Intelligence, right, announced it. We'll see how if it works as advertised. But one of the exciting thing is, Apple's ability to actually control on the device itself. So
Yeah.
because there is a lot of requests, everything is going to the server right now. Everything is
Yes.
going to OpenAI or
Correct.
cloud,
Yeah.
and a lot of it doesn't need to,
Yes.
right? So if some of the stuff moves to the edge, as in
Mhm.
the device itself,
Yes.
and then on top of that, Apple is doing Apple Silicon. I'm talking about the consumer apps, right?
Mhm.
Let's just take that category of apps,
Yes.
not enterprise apps. Is that like the overall? Hopefully, I mean, there'll be an increase in traffic because more people will be using it.
Yes.
How do you see that as a threat, opportunity? What is it for you? What does it mean to you? Have you thought about it? Is that true? What I'm saying?
100%. I think edge AI is definitely
Okay.
happening, and it's definitely happening faster than we would expect it to be, which is awesome. I actually want the AI market to open up quite a bit because the use cases are just immense. And I know that we're only scratching the surface of what's possible. So, what was like magical with GPT 3.5 is like table stakes today, and you can do that with a 8 billion parameter model. And I'm all for edge AI solving all of these smaller, simpler use cases because you don't need a lot of compute to solve those, grammar correction, sentence
Correct.
changing, change my tone,
Voice.
all of that, not needed, right? Everything you can do it on the edge. For all of the complex use cases, which we're starting to see a lot more, quizzes, for example, generates full JSON structures, which can ultimately create AI-based quizzes. Now, that's a complex use case that's come on the back of I figured out text generation, I figured out JSON generation, I've done reasoning, and now I'm able to generate full blown JSON blocks, which will power my AI features. Those aspects will still stay in the cloud. So I would imagine applications having this dual role, much like databases, right? Almost all phone applications will have a small, tiny database that's embedded within my phone, and the remaining database stays in the cloud. I think this will be a similar place where Edge AI will do the simple stuff that I don't need to hit my main server for. For all the complex stuff, I'll start using my main servers.
And the larger point is also that the whole usage will explode like 1,000 times, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. There are a lot of AI skeptics who are saying like, yeah, it's like a crypto bros, hyping up crypto and,
Yeah.
look at what it is. And, it's all blockchain, like a buzzy word, but, you can impress people in cocktail parties, but, what do I use it for? And then the other side, which is like, AGI is here and,
Yeah.
we're all going to be redundant. So these two worlds.
Correct. Yes.
Would it be useful?
I would obviously have a much more biased opinion towards AI. I'm betting my
You should, but
prime years on it for sure. But I think AGI is still some time away. To some extent, we already have AGI because there's a lot of general intelligence already built in. If I focus on the real use cases where we're seeing real ROI, I think that's many use cases now across functions.
what are those?
So
Tell us the top three that you'll say, yeah, here it's here, right? You don't need to
Yeah.
imagine future flying cars
I
or whatever.
think 100% in creating software,
Yeah.
writing code, the amount of code that we're able to ship and the speed at which we're able to ship software is because we now have AI writing a lot of our code.
How many developers do you have?
We have 5 developers.
Okay. And in a pre-AI world,
This
how
would
many-
have been easily 20. So
that's a pretty good.
yeah, and I think that's also because we are now in the thick of AI, so all of our developers will use a lot more AI. We have all of the tool subscriptions, we have all of the integrations in place. So we are probably doing the most efficient use of AI in programming, but I have seen real results from it. Can you build applications or SDKs within minutes? Yes, you can. Smaller applications that would be great value adds for your service within minutes. So I think that speed of iterations becomes so fast that building software has become really
The software development seems like a clear
100%.
place,
Yes.
a clear use case. How about customer support? That's your
Customer
background.
support, another one. I think we were seeing customer support automation only in the B2C space where queries were always very, I mean, you would have the same 100 queries coming over and over again. Yeah? How do I change my password? Where is my order, etc. For every other use case, you didn't have anything that could manage those answers. Now, AI managing those answers, customer support, I think is absolutely ripe for disruption right now. You don't need a lot of people doing it. I think you need people doing the smarter stuff now, not answering the same question over and over again. So customer support is another one. I think marketing, content generation, the amount of reports, content, blog, LinkedIn post, Twitter we create is insane because we do it all with specialized AI prompts that we've built over time. A lot of time people ask me that how are you posting on LinkedIn and on Twitter and writing a blog and also running the company. That's because a lot of it is being done by AI.
How big is your marketing team?
2 people.
Okay, how big would it have been if you did not?
A lot bigger because I mean marketing has a lot of this content aspect, right? You need to write lots and lots of documentation. You need to write about APIs. You need to send emails, write blogs, etc. We do so much of it using AI that I mean I'd love to show people some of our workflows and how we're creating full reports using basic inputs and then just nudging AI to keep getting better and better. So we do that very often. So content generation for sure. Marketing. We want to try it in sales. I've seen a lot of people say it gives really good results in sales as well. That's just not something we've done so far. But I would say almost every function where there is text involved or even images involved, that has like a large scope for productivity gains now.
How many people are in the company?
We are a total of 15 people.
Wow.
Including interns and everybody, yes.
In a pre-AI world, presumably this would have been like at least.
I mean, I think we would have still been 15, but we wouldn't have gotten this far.
Or to produce the same amount of output
would have taken us a lot longer.
And I had many more people. Just want to digress for a minute because you mentioned some of these things, and I think it'll be very useful for the audience. What are the tools that you're using for programming and marketing? I know it's a separate topic, but
so these keep changing every month.
But what is the latest and hottest?
Right now is so we use Claude for all of our marketing. It's a really good model. Claude.ai works very well. So that's something that almost the entire team uses. Even for code generation, they have this concept called artifacts. So we figured.
So you like the artifacts?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the easiest way to copy paste code into my application. So I think artifacts is very good. Then we use GitHub Copilot a lot for code generation, test case writing, writing similar pieces of code again and again. So Copilot is great. Some of the team also uses Cursor. Cursor is an AI-enabled Visual Studio fork, which works really well.
People seem to love who use it. Seem to love it.
Yeah. So I think even the team is also equally split between Copilot and Cursor. People who use Cursor just use Cursor. Like Ayush uses Cursor completely. I don't have that much work, so I just prefer Copilot because I don't want to shift out of my VS Code. But that's for coding. For marketing, again, we'll use a combination of Claude plus OpenAI plus the APIs. So we'll use these tools, but we'll also use a lot of APIs.
You're not using Pepper.
Pepper, I think they've now moved into a more enterprise market. So we'll have to become a lot larger for them to be able to buy their product.
We should try Jasper.
I feel for content generation, we figured out our workflows really well. Coming from Pepper, we sort of knew what works and what doesn't. So we built out our own workflows there quite a bit. And then Perplexity for research, a lot of APIs for autonomous browsing. So yeah, it's a mixture of all of these right now that we're using for use case.
One thing that we would like to do at this point is to maybe do a demo of your product. So that'll be I think very interesting for your audience. Yeah. So let's look at a demo.
So Portkey helps take your LLM apps to production. faster, cheaper, and with higher accuracy and reliability. It provides analytics and logging across all of your API requests. It houses a powerful AI gateway that allows you to route requests based on different strategies. You could route to any of the LLM providers there are. You can also host your entire prompt library on Portkey, so you never have to store your prompts within your code. Getting started takes 2 minutes. With existing OpenAI libraries, you could just add the Portkey specific headers, the base URL, and get started. These requests are now automatically getting logged. By the way, you could also use Portkey SDKs if you're not using the OpenAI SDK. The specific calls that you're making will start to get logged within Portkey. You can very easily analyze these requests and responses, which makes for very simple debugging. We also collect metrics from all of these logs to give you very powerful analytics across cost, the tokens used, latency, and also usage of the various APIs across your users. You could dive deeper to see user level analytics and even the errors. We're capturing not just API failures, but also accuracy errors. Portkey has the capability to automatically rescue requests based on various different strategies that you set up in your AI gateway. Let's take a look at some of these strategies. As a configuration, I can fall back to Azure when OpenAI goes down. Writing that is as simple as writing a configuration where I say my provider is Azure, and then I can add Azure's virtual key. When I'm in the mood to try open source, I could also test Llama 2 in a very similar way. So I will say retry 4 times, but then load balance between OpenAI and Llama 2, which we're using through AnyScale. And I'm saying 95% of my traffic is to OpenAI, but let's test with 5% of my traffic to AnyScale. I could also add a cache strategy to it, making my requests blazing fast, and also at zero cost from the LLM provider. I could save this configuration and then see all of my cache statistics back on my analytics dashboards. So I will see what is the cache speedup that I get, what is my hit rate, and then what are my exact savings from requests that are being served from cache. Many teams also choose to use Portkey's prompt library to manage and experiment with their prompts. You can store all of your prompts here. Let's try one which is trying to create blog outlines. So we've created a different prompt. You can add your variables, some values, and I'm going to test this on GPT-4. So this is a pretty good output that's come out. Let's try it with 3.5 because I've heard 3.5 is cheaper and maybe faster. So now I'm able to see this completion right here without actually going anywhere. Once I'm ready, I can deploy this API without having to really write this prompt in my code, and then see the evaluations of the various requests that have happened from this API. So I could analyze the request, see the request and the response, and if I like it, I can just grade it saying, okay, this was good. Good for it.
Rohit, let's step back. I want to ask about where is all this going? Like, I know if you were to look at a crystal ball, in 12 to 24 months, where would the AI world be? Like, what would be the adoption specifically?
Yeah.
What will be, if we were to do this interview 12 months later and 24 months later, what would we be talking about? And where would Portkey be in 12 to 24 months?
I'm sure this answer will change in 3 months. But
Sure.
I think currently I believe that we're still just doing one API call that gets a response and I serve it back. That's it. There's a lot more orchestration that can come in here, which will mean automating workflows and doing a lot more complex stuff. Even with code generation, for example, right now I ask it to give me a code snippet. It gives me a code snippet and that's it. It's a very transactional nature of AI that we're using. I think this is very definitely going to morph into a more workflow-based, more contextual AI over the next 1 year.
With agents
With
playing.
agents coming in, autonomous agents coming in, orchestration and workflows coming in. I think all of that will become almost standard within 12 months. Because I have seen that you can solve a lot more use cases by just chaining requests together rather than just doing one thing at a time. So I think that is definitely going to happen. Another thing I would bet very strongly on is people using an ensemble of models and not just using one model for everything. Unless that one model is GPT-4 and becomes dirt cheap, which is not going to happen. I would imagine people using a combination of edge AI plus smaller models for simpler tasks and large models for reasoning and other abilities. So I think this is definitely the other piece which I feel is going to happen very much. The third prediction I would say is I think a lot more audio use cases. I keep talking to a lot of people, and I think almost everybody's betting big on audio because text is limited. The amount of text that's there in the world is also very limited, but we have a lot more audio data and audio models at some time can definitely surpass text models as well. So that would be my third thing, saying multimodal definitely is the future. And audio specifically will, I think, open up consumer use cases that we've just not had before.
So multimodal agentic workflows where you're chaining multiple things to accomplish the higher level tasks
Yes.
rather than point to point. And I can see why Portkey would be important in all of this because
Yeah.
you'll need somebody to manage, especially in the third point that you made, also in a world of multiple models coexisting. It's a good world to be in. Awesome. Thank you very much for your time. I learned a lot, so I appreciate it. And thanks again, everybody, for watching.
Thank you so much.